So I'm still kinda in shock as I'm typing this. Not gonna lie, I've typed and deleted this post like 5 times already because it sounds so fucking unbelievable, even to me. But I need to get this off my chest because honestly, I'm about to explode. Some background. I've always been the responsible one in my family. While my parents and siblings bounced from one financial disaster to another, I've been grinding since I was 16. Worked through college, landed a decent job analyzing financial risk, ironic, I know, and spent the last 4 years saving every penny for a house down payment. $40,000. 40,000. Do you know how many weekends I didn't go out? How many vacations I skipped? How many times I ate ramen while my friends were hitting up restaurants? Meanwhile, my parents have been doing what they always do, living beyond their means. Dad's got this entrepreneur thing where he starts a new business every other year that inevitably fails. Mom enables him completely. My brother, 27, and sister, 25, are basically carbon copies. Always with the latest iPhone, but somehow always broke by the 10th of the month. I love them. But Jesus Christ, they're financial disasters. So 3 weeks ago, it's almost 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, and someone's pounding on my apartment door. I'm already in bed browsing Reddit when I hear it. I open up to find my entire family standing there looking like someone died. Dad's literally shaking, waving some official-looking papers in my face. Mom's crying, mascara everywhere. My brother and sister looking panicked. They all burst in before I can even process what's happening. Dad slams the papers down on my coffee table. Foreclosure documents. He starts telling me they have 72 hours before the sheriff comes to evict them. Mom collapses onto my couch, literally hyperventilating, saying they're changing the locks on Friday and they'll be homeless. My brother grabs my shoulders so hard it actually hurt and tells me I'm literally their last hope. Everyone else already said no. My sister pulls out her phone and shows me their bank account. $287 left in checking. She's going on about how they can't even afford a motel for a few days. Dad's hands are shaking as he's showing me all these foreclosure documents, telling me how he built that house with his bare hands back in 1994, how Mom gave birth to all of us there, and how he's begging me to help. Mom literally falls to her knees in front of me, like actually on the fucking floor, saying she'll work 3 jobs, clean houses, anything to pay me back, just don't let them lose their home. They had final notice letters, disconnection warnings for utilities, court orders, the whole 9 yards. My brother kept saying they're auctioning the house in 72 hours if they don't pay. I'm standing there in my pajamas trying to process this shitstorm that just crashed into my apartment. I kept asking questions. How did it get this bad? Why didn't they tell me sooner? What about all the payment plans and options before foreclosure? Dad kept cutting me off, saying there's no time for explanations. They need $40,000 right now, or they're on the street by Friday. I'm not gonna lie, I was suspicious. This is exactly the kind of financial emergency they've always had, just on a bigger scale. But the documents looked legit. The desperation seemed real. And it was my family. The house I grew up in, where all my childhood memories are. After hours of them pleading and crying and me questioning, I broke. I transferred the entire $40,000 I'd saved for my down payment. 4 years of saving. Gone in one fucking transfer. They sobbed with relief. Dad hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Mom kept kissing my face like I was 5 again. They promised they'd sign notarized repayment plans the next day. Dad literally said, "You saved our lives, son. We'll never forget this." They left around 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep at all that night. Something felt off, but I kept telling myself it was just the shock of almost losing our family home. The next day, radio silence. No notarized repayment plan. Calls went to voicemail. Texts got the delivered, but no response. I figured they were busy dealing with the bank. I gave them space. 3 weeks go by with minimal contact. Just brief texts saying they're working things out with the bank and they'll update me soon. Then yesterday, my coworker texts me, "Hey, just drove by your parents' place. Saw moving trucks there. They selling the house?" I literally left work mid-meeting and sped over there. Pulling up to the house, there's a fucking sold sign in the yard. The house is completely stripped bare. Windows empty. No cars in the driveway. I knocked on the neighbor's door, Mrs. Peterson, who's lived next door since I was a kid. She confirmed they'd packed up and left 10 days ago. Said they seemed really excited. Mentioned something about starting fresh and new opportunities. I called my dad. "The number you were trying to reach is no longer in service." I called my mom. "This subscriber cannot be reached." My brother and sister blocked me on everything. Phone, Instagram, Facebook, even fucking LinkedIn. I was losing my mind trying to figure out what the hell was happening when my cousin sends me a screenshot from my sister's Instagram, which I'm now blocked from. It's a fucking carousel post with the caption, "Living our best life," posted from some luxury resort in Bali. The photos? My entire family with first-class flight champagne toasts, five-star hotel rooms with ocean views, designer shopping bags, dad with a fucking Rolex, mom with new jewelry, my siblings posing with fancy cocktails by an infinity pool, and the caption, "Finally free from the rat race." Sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith. I did some digging. They sold the house for $520,000. $520,000. Plus, they kept my $40K. They were never in foreclosure. The whole thing was a fucking scam to get my money before they sold the house and disappeared. I've been between rage crying and plotting murder for the past 24 hours. But I just got home from a bar where I was drowning my sorrows when my phone exploded with notifications. 67 new messages. Mom. Baby, please answer. We're stranded. Dad. Son, we made a terrible mistake. We're desperate. Brother. Bro, they're in serious trouble. Please help. Sister. I'm begging you. They need you now. Apparently their dream life in Bali has turned into a nightmare. I haven't responded yet, but I'm smiling for the first time in 24 hours because I have a plan. They think they've seen me at my most generous? Wait until they see me at my most vengeful. Update coming soon. I'm not letting them get away with this. Update 1. First, holy shit at all the responses to my post yesterday. Thanks for the support and advice, though some of you are way more forgiving than I could ever be right now. So I've spent the last 48 hours doing some serious digging, and what I've found is making me even more pissed than before. After I got all those desperate messages, I didn't respond right away. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with before engaging. Not gonna lie, part of me wanted to immediately text back, "Fuck all of you," but that wouldn't get me anywhere. Instead, I started investigating what actually happened with the house. Remember those foreclosure documents they showed me? I contacted the county records office and pulled the actual property history. Guess what? There was never any foreclosure proceeding. Not even close. Their mortgage payments were completely up to date. In fact, they'd refinanced just 6 months ago and pulled out about $50,000 in equity. The official papers they were waving around? Complete forgeries. My dad had literally created fake letterhead and documents. The final notices were all bullshit. The court orders were printed from some template online. The house sale closed 3 days after I gave them my money. 3 fucking days. This wasn't some impulse decision after getting my cash. They had this planned for months. The real estate listing showed the house had been on the market for 8 weeks before I gave them the money. I reached out to my aunt, mom's sister, who's always been straight with me. She sounded genuinely shocked when I told her what happened, but then dropped another bomb. This isn't the first time they've done something like this. Apparently, when my grandfather died 15 years ago, they convinced him to change his will to cut out my aunt because she was on drugs and would waste the money. Total lie. They got almost everything while my aunt got nothing. She's been essentially estranged from them since. My aunt had a theory about why they did this now. Turns out my dad's latest business venture, some dropshipping thing, failed spectacularly about 9 months ago. They were being sued by suppliers and had racked up about $90,000 in business debt. They weren't losing the house to foreclosure. They were running from creditors. I spent hours going through old family photos on Facebook and found one from last Christmas where my sister's laptop screen is visible in the background. Zooming in, you can see she had a Google Doc open titled Exit Strategy 2023. These fuckers had been planning this for at least 8 months. Then, I got a text from my cousin, the one who showed me the Bali pics. He'd been talking to my sister on WhatsApp before she blocked him too. According to him, they chose Bali because they read online it has no extradition treaty with the US. They were literally planning to hide from debt collectors. The most infuriating part? My brother texted my cousin about how hilarious it was that I fell for their story. Said I was always such a responsible little Boy Scout, and they knew I'd cave if Mom cried enough. They were laughing about manipulating me. I took a sick day from work and went to a buddy's place who's good with computers. We found the real estate listing online. Final sale price, $520,000. After their mortgage payoff and fees, they walked away with about $350,000 in cash, plus my $40,000. While we were looking, we found something else interesting. The real estate photos showed moving boxes in the background labeled storage unit. They didn't just pack for Bali, they put stuff in storage somewhere. They were planning to come back. By day 2 of my investigation, the messages from my family were getting more frantic. Mom, please, baby, we've been robbed. All our money and passports gone. The hotel is threatening to call police. Please. Dad, Son, I know we made a mistake, but this is serious. Your mother needs medication we can't afford now. Just call me. Brother. Dude, this isn't a joke anymore. Mom's having panic attacks. Dad got beat up trying to get money from some locals. We're actually scared. Sister. I swear to God, if you don't answer, we're going to be in an Indonesian jail by tomorrow. They don't fuck around here. I started researching Bali, tourist scams, and what typically happens to Americans who run out of money there. From what I can tell, they probably blew through cash way faster than expected. Five-star resorts in Bali aren't cheap. Neither are the designer clothes and watches they were flexing in those photos. I checked my sister's Instagram through my friend's account. Her last post, 24 hours ago, shows them at some beach club with a premium bottle service. But the caption has changed from living our best life to some bullshit about enjoying our last day before heading home bittersweet goodbyes. They're clearly running out of money and trying to get back to the US. But I'm guessing their return tickets were either one-way or they changed their return dates and now can't afford the change fees or new tickets. I finally decided to respond, but only to gather more information. I sent a single text to my mom. What exactly happened? How much do you need? The response was instant, like she was sitting there staring at her phone. She sent a long rambling message about how someone broke into their hotel room and stole all their cash, credit cards, and my dad's watch. She claimed they filed a police report, but the police here don't care about tourists. Said they need $6,000 for new tickets, home and hotel bills, or they'll be arrested for fraud. I didn't respond. 2 hours later, my dad texted that they only need $4,000. Then my brother texted they could manage with $3,000 if I can just help with that much. They're negotiating with themselves at this point. What they don't know is that while I was researching, I made some calls to college friends now working in banking. One of them pulled some strings and found out my parents opened 3 new credit cards before leaving the country. They maxed them all out. About $45,000 in new debt. They're not just running from old business debt. They're committing straight-up fraud. I've also learned that they haven't filed taxes for the last 2 years. The sale of their house? Betting they don't plan to report that capital gain either. The IRS is going to have a field day. So here's my plan. I'm not giving them a damn penny, but I'm also not ghosting them like they did to me. No, that would be too easy. I'm going to keep them on the hook thinking help is just around the corner. Make them sweat in that tropical paradise they chose over their own son. And while they're panicking, I'll be making sure the right people know exactly where they are and what they've done. They wanted to escape the rat race? I'm about to show them what it really means to be trapped. More updates coming soon. The messages are getting more desperate by the hour, and I'm just getting started. First from my sister. WTF did you send to mom and dad? They're freaking out. Then my brother. Dude, call this off. You're ruining Thanksgiving. Then a bunch from my mom, going from angry, how dare you threaten us with a lawyer, to panicky, please call us, we can work this out, to desperate, we're so worried about you, please respond. My dad didn't text. Of course not. His pride wouldn't let him. But here's where it gets even better. Remember that interesting info I got from the family accountant? Turns out my parents have been in financial trouble for years. My dad's real estate investments tanked during the housing crash, and they've been living on credit cards and loans ever since. That $47,000 they wanted me to pay, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And the best part? They've been borrowing money from various family members, significant amounts, while maintaining this image of success, telling everyone they were just managing investments for them, all while painting me as the financial disaster. So Thursday afternoon, I sent one more email, this time just to my parents. I laid out everything I knew about their financial situation, the loans from family members, the second mortgage they took out last year, the credit card juggling. I made it very clear that unless they returned my money and stopped spreading lies about me, this information would be my Christmas gift to the entire extended family. I wasn't bluffing. I had documentation for everything, thanks to that conversation with Beckett. Screenshots, statements, dates, amounts, everything. That's when the real panic set in. Thursday night, my phone practically exploded with calls and texts. I ignored all of them, let them stew in their own mess for a while. And that brings us to 2 a.m. Friday, with them pounding on my apartment door. Update 2. Okay, so the texts and calls have been non-stop since my last update. It's been 5 days of psychological warfare, and honestly, it's both exhausting and weirdly satisfying. I've barely slept, but I'm running on pure vindictive energy at this point. After figuring out the extent of their scam, I decided to start responding to their messages, but only enough to keep them hanging. My mom has been the most persistent, sending these long emotional novels about how they're truly desperate and never meant to hurt me, and how this was just supposed to be a fresh start that went wrong. I finally called her back 3 days ago. Not gonna lie, it felt weird hearing her voice after everything. She started sobbing immediately, saying they've been sleeping in the hotel lobby because they can't pay their bill. Said dad tried to sell his watch, but apparently it got stolen, along with their cash. More likely he couldn't sell it because it's probably fake. The whole time she's talking, I'm just sitting there in my kitchen, staring at the empty space where my fancy coffee maker used to be. Had to sell it on Facebook Marketplace because I'm back to saving every penny after they took my house fund. The contrast between her poor me act and what they did to me just made me furious. I kept her talking for almost an hour, asking for specific details about what happened, how much they need, their exact location, etc. Every time she tried to rush me into sending money, I'd ask another question. She kept changing her story too. First, they were robbed by hotel staff. Then it was someone they met at a club. Then it was a taxi driver. I recorded the whole call. The best part? While I had her on the phone, my dad was simultaneously texting my aunt, his sister-in-law, asking for money too. But with a completely different story about getting food poisoning and needing emergency medical treatment. My aunt forwarded me screenshots in real time while I was on the call with mom. The lies don't even match up. After the call, I sent my mom a message saying I needed time to figure out how to help and would get back to her the next day. Then I went completely silent for 24 hours. The messages I got during that silence were fucking wild. My brother sent 37 texts, each one more desperate than the last. Started with, "Dude, mom's really sick, we need your help," and ended with, "I swear to God if you don't answer, I'm going to fucking lose it." My sister switched from begging to threatening to tell everyone what you did in college. Literally, nothing worth mentioning happened in college. She's just grasping at straws. Meanwhile, I wasn't just sitting around enjoying their panic. I was putting my plan into action. First, I used my aunt's connection to find their hotel in Bali. They mentioned the name to her when asking for money. I called the hotel pretending to be concerned about my elderly parents, who might be having trouble with their bill. The hotel staff confirmed they had guests matching their names who had an outstanding balance of over $2,000. I thanked them and hung up. Next, I sent an anonymous tip to the IRS about potential tax fraud related to an unreported house sale and multiple years of unfiled returns. Included their names, previous address, and the sale amount. Provided just enough details to get things moving. Then, I contacted their credit card companies. Didn't claim to be them or anything illegal. Just called the fraud departments as myself. Explained I had reason to believe my family members opened cards with the intention of maxing them out and fleeing the country. Gave them the info they needed to look into it. The credit card companies were very interested in my information. One rep actually said, "This is exactly the kind of thing we look for with international transactions." Within 24 hours, all 3 of their new credit cards were frozen for suspicious activity. Now here's where shit gets really interesting. Remember those storage units I mentioned? My aunt knew which company they used because she helped them move some stuff. I called the storage company, explained I was a relative, and asked about their policy for abandoned units. They told me payment was due on the 1st of every month, which was just 2 days away. I sent a carefully worded text to my dad. "Working on getting you guys some money. Which storage company did you use again? Need to check something." He responded instantly with the name and unit number, thinking I was helping. I didn't reply. 2 days later, yesterday, I got a frantic call from my sister. She was literally screaming into the phone that the storage company had just notified them their payment was declined. Guess those frozen credit cards were set up for autopay. And they'd be putting a lock on the unit in 48 hours. Apparently, all their important documents were in there. Birth certificates, passports, copies or old ones, since they obviously have their current ones. Financial records, family photos, the works. I calmly told her I'd see what I could do, then hung up. Instead of helping, I contacted my aunt and cousin, who live about an hour from the storage place. Turns out my family owes them both money from previous emergencies. They were more than happy to drive over there and pay the minimum to keep the unit from going to auction, but only after they take what's owed to them in value. The facility said family members with the gate code, which my dad helpfully texted me thinking I'd pay the bill, could access the unit before the company lock goes on. My aunt texted me photos last night of what she found. Designer clothes with tags still on, 3 new laptops, jewelry, and several boxes labeled "Important, Do Not Lose" that contained what looks like all their financial and legal documents. My aunt took photos of everything before taking the items of equivalent value to what she's owed. She's storing the important documents safely at her house. Meanwhile, my parents' hotel in Bali has now restricted them from leaving the property until their bill is paid. My mom sent me a teary voice message saying the hotel manager threatened to call local police if they try to leave without paying. My dad got on the phone with me last night and actually broke down crying. First time I've ever heard him cry. Said he made a terrible mistake. They've learned their lesson, and they just want to come home. I asked him point blank if he regrets what they did to me. There was this long pause, and he said, "Of course, but you have to understand we were desperate and you've always been so financially stable." That's when I lost it. I told him the only reason I was financially stable was because I didn't piss away every dollar I earned like they did. That I worked overtime for years to save that down payment while they were buying new cars they couldn't afford. That I skipped vacations and lived with roommates to save money while they remodeled kitchens with credit cards. He got defensive, started blaming the economy, his failed businesses, medical bills that I know don't exist. Anything but their own choices. When I brought up them planning this for months, he hung up on me. An hour later, my brother called. This was unexpected because he's usually the least emotional one. He was clearly drunk and actually admitted the whole thing was originally his idea. Said they never thought I'd make such a big deal about the money because I always have more. I fucking don't. The really sick part? He let slip that they specifically targeted me because I'm careful with money. They knew I'd have savings while other relatives wouldn't. They literally punished me for being responsible. When I asked why they didn't just ask for help instead of manipulating me, he said, "Because you would have judged us and given us a whole lecture about budgeting. Like that justifies stealing $40,000. Today, I sent them all the same message. I've transferred $3,000 to Western Union. We'll send details tomorrow morning. I haven't transferred a cent, but I know they'll spend all night feeling relieved, thinking help is coming. Tomorrow, they'll wake up expecting the money that will get them home. Instead, they're going to get something else entirely. I've scheduled a video call with all of them. I'm going to lay out everything I know, everything I've done, and exactly what's going to happen next." The hotel has already placed an international collection notice on them. The credit card companies are investigating fraud. The IRS has their information, and I have all the recorded calls and texts showing they knowingly scammed me. They think they've hit rock bottom? I'm about to hand them a fucking shovel. Final update coming tomorrow after the call. This ends on my terms, not theirs. Final update. I'm typing this with shaking hands. The video call with my family just ended about an hour ago, and holy fuck, I don't even know where to begin. So after telling them I'd send Western Union details tomorrow morning, I texted them all to join a Zoom call at 7 a.m. their time, 7 p.m. my time, to get the transfer information. I said I needed them all on the call for verification purposes. They agreed immediately. No surprise since they thought money was coming. I spent all day yesterday preparing. I created a document with screenshots of their Instagram posts, the fake foreclosure papers, their text messages laughing about scamming me, my bank transfer to them, the real estate listing showing when they actually put the house on the market, and their conflicting stories about what happened in Bali. I had it all organized and ready to share my screen. When the call connected, they were all huddled around my sister's phone in what looked like a hotel lobby. Mom looked like shit, hair unwashed, dark circles under her eyes. Dad was unshaven and kept rubbing his face. My brother and sister looked hungover but still somehow had their designer sunglasses perched on their heads. Fucking priorities, I guess. The first thing my mom said was asking about the money. When would they get the Western Union details? I told them we needed to discuss some things first. Then I shared my screen with the document I'd made. Their faces as they realized what they were looking at. I wish I'd recorded it. My dad immediately started with the excuses. They were planning to pay me back. They just needed to get settled first. This was an investment opportunity they couldn't pass up. My mom started crying, again, saying they made a terrible mistake and they'd make it up to me. I let them talk for about 5 minutes, just digging themselves deeper. Then, I dropped the first bomb. I'd spoken to the hotel manager. Turns out they owe over $3,000 in room charges, restaurant bills, and spa services. The manager confirmed they'd been trying to check out for 3 days, but their cards kept getting declined. They were essentially being held there until they paid. My sister lost it, at this point, screaming at me for calling the hotel. Said I had no right to discuss their business with strangers. I calmly pointed out that they'd made their business my business when they stole $40,000 from me. Then I told them about contacting the credit card companies, how their new cards had been flagged for potential fraud and frozen. My dad's face went completely white. He started stammering about how I could ruin their credit and destroy their future. I reminded him that they had already done that to me. The best part came when I mentioned the storage unit. My brother instantly accused me of stealing their stuff. I explained that I hadn't taken anything, but Aunt Kathy had. Their faces when I told them she had their important do not lose boxes containing all their financial and legal documents? Priceless. That's when they completely turned on each other. My sister started screaming at my brother that this was all his idea, and she told him it would backfire. My brother yelled back that at least he had an idea, while she just wanted to keep working dead-end jobs forever. My dad tried to calm them down, but my mom started attacking him, saying none of this would have happened if his businesses hadn't always failed. For about 10 minutes, I just watched them implode. They completely forgot I was even on the call. My sister shoved my brother so hard he dropped the phone, and I could hear them still fighting while staring at a ceiling fan. When they finally picked up the phone again, I laid out exactly what was happening. They owed the hotel over $3,000, which they needed to pay before leaving. Their credit cards were frozen and under investigation for potential fraud. Their important documents were with Aunt Kathy, who was keeping them until they repaid what they owed her. The IRS had been notified about their unreported house sale. They had no access to their storage unit with their remaining belongings. I had records of everything, the fake foreclosure documents, their contradicting stories, the timeline of their scam. Then I asked the question that had been burning in my mind. Why me? Why not just ask for help instead of stealing from me? My dad finally gave me a straight answer. He said, "Because you would have said no. You always judge us for how we handle money. You think you're better than us." And you know what? He's right. I would have said no to giving them $40,000 with no strings attached. I would have judged their financial decisions. And yes, when it comes to managing money, I am better than them. That's not arrogance. That's just reality. I told them I wouldn't be sending any money. Not a single cent. But I did have some information for them. My aunt had learned that our distant cousin Mark was currently in Thailand for work, about a 2-hour flight from Bali. I'd contacted him, explained the situation, minus the part about them scamming me, and he agreed to loan them enough money for economy tickets home if they paid the hotel bill themselves. He would book the tickets directly. No cash would touch their hands. This was their only option unless they wanted to contact the American embassy and explain they'd blown through all their money and needed emergency repatriation, which comes with its own set of problems and potential legal issues. My mom started thanking me profusely, like I'd just thrown them a lifeline. I cut her off and made it clear. This wasn't me helping them. This was me ending the situation on my terms. I told them Mark would contact them directly, and that I was done with this conversation and with them. My dad asked if this meant I was cutting them off forever. I told him that wasn't necessary. They'd already done that themselves when they decided to steal from me and ghost me. I was just making it official. My sister started crying, saying they'd made a mistake and families should forgive each other. I reminded her that she'd blocked me on everything and was posting champagne selfies while I was picking up extra shifts to rebuild my savings. That mistake line might work on someone else, but not on me. Just before I ended the call, my brother asked what would happen when they got back to the US. I told him the truth. They'd be coming back to frozen credit cards, potential tax problems, no house, damaged relationships with extended family, and a son who would never trust them again. They'd have to figure out the rest on their own, just like I'm having to figure out how to rebuild my life after what they did. I hung up. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from my sister. "We know we fucked up, but you didn't have to be so cold about it." And that's when I realized they still don't get it. They're still not sorry they scammed me. They're just sorry they got caught, and that I'm not bailing them out. So where does this leave me? I'm still out $40,000. My house plans are delayed by at least 2 years. I've lost the family I thought I had. But you know what? I've gained something too. Clarity, strength, the knowledge that I can handle betrayal and still stand my ground. And surprisingly, a better relationship with my aunt and some extended family who were shocked by what my parents did. Mark texted me a few hours ago. My parents and siblings managed to scrape together enough to pay the hotel bill by selling what designer items they had left. He's booking their flights home for next week. I don't know what they'll do when they get back, and honestly, I don't care. That chapter of my life is closed. I've already found a new apartment, my lease was ending next month anyway, changed my phone number and updated my financial accounts with extra security. I'm picking up some freelance work on weekends to rebuild my savings faster. Is this the revenge I originally wanted? Not exactly. I wanted them to suffer like I suffered. I wanted them to feel the panic I felt when I realized they'd stolen from me. But watching them turn on each other, seeing the consequences of their actions catch up to them, that's a different kind of justice. The slow-burning kind that lasts longer. They threw away a son who would have done anything to help them if they'd just been honest. Instead, they're flying home economy class with empty bank accounts, damaged credit, potential tax issues, no house, and no relationship with me. They wanted freedom from the rat race. Congrats. Now they're starting over from scratch at 50+ years old with nothing but burned bridges behind them. As for me, I'll be okay. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. And I'll never make the mistake of trusting the wrong people again, even if they share my DNA. Thanks for all the support, Reddit. Turns out internet strangers have more loyalty than my own flesh and blood.